Most women have no idea how profoundly their presence disturbs a man's soul, not because of anything they say or do, but because of something far more unsettling, the mirror they hold up to his unconscious. She does not need to chase him, seduce him, or prove her worth. Her very essence evokes something ancient in him, something buried beneath layers of ego, social conditioning, and repressed emotion. When a woman walks in her full feminine power, unguarded, luminous, and deeply rooted, she awakens the parts of him he's long tried to forget. And that's terrifying. Because male desire, contrary to the stories we've been told, is not simply about the body. It is not a hunger born in the eyes or the flesh. No, it is a calling from the soul, a desperate primal yearning to merge with what he has exiled within himself. The divine feminine, when embodied without apology, doesn't just attract a man. She dismantles him. She tears open the illusion of control. She forces him to confront every lie he's told himself about what strength, love, and power are supposed to look like. This is where Carl Jung's wisdom becomes prophecy. For Jung understood what modern culture still denies, that every man carries within him an anima, a hidden feminine archetype formed in the depths of his unconscious. And when he meets a woman who embodies that anima with piercing authenticity, it doesn't feel like chemistry. It feels like chaos. Because suddenly his soul remembers something his ego has tried to suppress, the sacred truth that he cannot be whole without integrating her. But this is not a fairy tale. It's not about romance or rescue. It's about fire, shadow work, death, and rebirth. You see, a man will often desire a woman most intensely when she reflects the part of himself he has abandoned. He doesn't even understand why he's drawn to her. It's not her beauty, it's her depth, her silence that speaks louder than words, her gaze that cuts through his posturing and lands straight in the space between who he is and who he pretends to be. She becomes the gatekeeper to his transformation, and that makes her dangerous, because if he gets too close, he'll either have to evolve or destroy the mirror. This is why some women who carry deep feminine energy often find men disappearing, lashing out, or becoming inexplicably cold after moments of closeness. It's not about her being too much. It's about her being too true. Her presence disrupts the fragile identity he's built, a persona crafted for survival, not for truth. And so rather than face the storm within, he turns away from the one who stirred it. But here is the forbidden truth no one tells you. It's not rejection. It's revelation. When a man pulls away from a woman who embodies the divine feminine, he is not running from her. He is running from the part of himself she exposes. Her depth reminds him of everything he hasn't faced. Her intuition unnerves him because it sees through him. Her emotional intelligence makes him feel naked, vulnerable, and painfully unprepared. He cannot hide behind logic or dominance here. She does not play in the realm of strategy. She breathes in archetypes and speaks in symbols, and this makes her sacred and feared. She is not a woman to be conquered. She is a woman who invites him to conquer himself, to burn down the persona, to descend into the shadow, to meet the wounds of the inner child and the ghosts of unmet needs. She holds the medicine, yes, but only for the man brave enough to bleed for it. And you, if you are such a woman, you must understand this. His desire for you is not always love. Sometimes it is an echo of his soul crying out for what he does not yet have the courage to claim. Do not mistake his fascination for readiness. A man may be magnetized by your light, but terrified of the path it illuminates. And that is not your burden to fix. You are not here to shrink, so he feels safe. You are not here to dim, so he doesn't burn. You are here to embody. The ones who can stand the heat will rise with you. The ones who cannot will collapse beneath the weight of their own resistance. Either way, your task is not to wait, chase, or explain. Your task is to become so rooted in your essence that no amount of absence shakes your worth. Because the truth is, male desire, real, soul-rooted desire, is not casual. It is holy. And when he truly sees you, not as an object of gratification, but as a guide to his own healing, he will not merely want you. He will rise for you. But before he can rise, he must fall. This is the great paradox of desire. A man cannot truly ascend into conscious union until he has descended into his own darkness. And the divine feminine, when fully embodied, does not offer him comfort in that descent. She offers truth, brutal, exquisite truth. She becomes the force that calls him into the underworld of himself, where masks rot, illusions shatter, and every false identity burns in the fire of inner reckoning. You must understand he has been taught to fear this fall. Society worships control, performance, logic. He was trained to suppress feeling, to sever vulnerability, to perform strength, while secretly starving for connection. And so when he encounters a woman who radiates presence, who doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't fold under his confusion, something ancient stirs, something terrifying, because she is not another task to master. She is a threshold. To be with her is not to win, it is to surrender. And he has not been taught how to do that. So he resists. He clings harder to the ego. He projects his own inadequacy onto her. He accuses her of being too emotional, too complex, too sensitive. But these words are not about her. They are weapons forged in his own fear, hurled in panic to protect a crumbling identity. She represents a kind of intimacy he craves and fears in equal measure. Because with her, nothing shallow survives. With her, he is forced to meet the boy inside the man, the one who never learned how to cry without shame, to need without guilt, to break without judgment. And still, something in him aches for her, not for her body, though he may confuse the pull, but for her energy, for her spiritual gravity, for the way she makes silence feel sacred, for the way her stillness unmasks his chaos, for the way she listens, not to reply, but to reveal. She is not impressed by his status. She is not seduced by his charm. She does not reward performance. She wants his presence, his raw, uncomfortable, trembling truth. And that scares him more than rejection ever could. For if he gives her that, he can no longer hide. And here lies another forbidden truth. The divine feminine evokes the sacred masculine, but she does not create it. That is his task. She may awaken the seed, but the growth is his burden to bear. She cannot force his transformation. She cannot drag him into wholeness. She can only stand in hers and invite. Anything more is betrayal, not to him, to herself. Some women, sensing the depth of a man's pain, offer too much. They mother instead of mirror. They explain instead of embody. They wait for him to evolve rather than walk in their own. But a woman does not teach a man how to become whole. She becomes whole, and he either rises to meet her or remains behind in the wilderness of avoidance. And so she must know. His retreat is not proof of her failure. His confusion is not evidence of her lack. His fear is not her weight to carry. She is not too much. She is just enough to stir his soul, to shake his sleep, to rupture the shell he's lived in too long. This is the role of the feminine archetype in Jungian psychology, not to soothe, but to stir. The anima does not offer comfort. She offers confrontation. She emerges in a man's dreams, in his fantasies, in the inexplicable gravity he feels toward women who trigger something deeper than lust. And if he ignores her, she festers. She appears in his life as projection, as addiction, as longing for what he cannot name. She haunts him because she is him, the part he cannot touch while clinging to the lie that logic is all he needs. A man who has not faced his anima is a man divided. He may be successful, admired, even powerful, but inside he is fractured. And this fracture makes him fragile. Easily threatened, quick to dominate, incapable of holding space for anything that doesn't inflate his ego. He wants a goddess, but only if she kneels. He desires depth, but only if it doesn't drown him. But the divine feminine does not kneel. She does not soften for his comfort. She does not water down her essence for fear of abandonment. She knows that the man who cannot hold her presence is not rejecting her. He is revealing himself. So she lets him go, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in sovereign grace. For she has learned the difference between a man who sees her and a man who seeks to use her as a salve for his unhealed wounds. One desires union, the other desires escape. And she was not born to be a hiding place. There comes a moment, often cloaked in silence, when a woman realizes that her energy alone is a crucible, that simply being who she is, without distortion, apology, or pretense, forces every man around her to make a choice, rise into truth or recoil into illusion. This is not arrogance, it is alchemy. Because the divine feminine does not merely love, she transforms. To love her is to be undone. And here lies perhaps the most forbidden truth of all. Male desire, in its purest and most sacred form, is not a pursuit of pleasure, but a cry for redemption. Beneath the layers of pride, conquest, and bravado is a brokenness most men cannot name. And in the presence of a fully embodied woman, that brokenness trembles. not out of shame, but recognition. She is not what he expected. She doesn't flirt like the others. She doesn't feed his need for validation. She doesn't soothe the ego that demands to be admired, worshipped, obeyed. She stares straight through it. And in that gaze, he glimpses the man he could become, if only he dared to shatter. You see, it is easy to desire a woman's body, but to desire her soul, that is warfare. Because her soul carries the very things he's been conditioned to suppress: intuition, emotion, depth, silence, wildness, mystery. Things that can't be dominated, things that invite surrender. And surrender to the ego feels like death. So he hesitates. He flirts with the edge, but pulls back when the heat rises. He senses that she won't tolerate his half-truths, his fragmented presence, his hollow bravado. She is too attuned, too ancient. She's seen this dance before, and she's not here for theater. She is here for truth, and truth costs. This is what most men do not understand about their desire. It is not meant to be indulged, but decoded. It is not meant to be fulfilled through consumption, but through transformation. The woman he cannot stop thinking about, the one who lingers in his dreams, who unsettles him more than any other, she is not an itch to be scratched. She is an initiation. Carl Jung spoke of the anima not as a fantasy, but as a guide. She is the key to his soul, the feminine within, that he must integrate to become whole. And until he does, he will continue to project her onto women in his life, idealizing, romanticizing, then punishing them when they fail to live up to the myth he has created. He will confuse possession with intimacy, control with safety, desire with devotion. But the woman who walks in her full feminine power will not become a vessel for his projections. She will not carry the weight of his unclaimed shadow. She will not contort herself to be the fantasy he can idolize or destroy. She will stand, and in standing she forces him to choose, evolve or exit. Many will exit, and she must not mourn them. She must not shrink. For each man who flees is a prayer returned unanswered, a message from the divine that she's being protected, not punished. There is pain in this kind of sovereignty. It is not soft, it is not romantic, it is raw. But it is the pain of purification, not abandonment. Because the feminine that embodies truth will always be too much for the man who clings to lies. She does not seduce. She summons, and only those willing to be reborn will respond. You too must remember this. Your power is not in how many chase you, want you, obsess over you. Your power is in how deeply your presence demands awakening, in how many illusions your silence destroys, in how your very existence calls the unconscious into the light. There are women whose laughter pleases men. Then there are women whose gaze pierces through centuries of emotional repression and inherited wounds. The former is adored, the latter is feared, but it is the feared woman who changes the world. She is the mirror of the divine. She is the archetype the collective unconscious trembles to face, not because she is cruel, but because she is unflinching. She does not bend to fit into a man's idea of safe. She is the storm that cleanses, the womb that births, the mystery that cannot be solved but must be surrendered to. And if a man is brave, truly brave, he will not seek to tame her, he will seek to meet her. To meet her is not to conquer her, it is to finally face himself. Because the divine feminine, in her awakened form, does not offer herself to the man still chasing shadows. She is not here to be a placeholder for a man running from his inner void. She is the void. She is the vast, unknowable silence that lives beyond distraction. She does not fill his emptiness. She reveals it. And this is what breaks so many men who believe they want a powerful woman. They think they want her fire, but they cannot stand the mirror she holds. They crave the fantasy of her, not the presence of her. They want her sexuality, but not her depth. Her loyalty, but not her boundaries. Her nurturing, but not her knowing. Because her knowing sees them clearly, and most men are not yet ready to be seen without armor. But the armor must fall. If he is to become whole, truly whole, he must lay down every shield, every performance, every story that says he must dominate to be worthy. He must grieve the parts of himself that were never nurtured, never witnessed, never allowed to feel, and only then can he stand before her, not as a boy playing at manhood, but as a man who has finally returned to himself. You see, he has been taught to chase power, but not intimacy. He knows how to build empires, but not how to hold eye contact. He knows how to seduce, but not how to stay. He knows how to possess, but not how to protect. And when he meets a woman who demands presence over performance, it rattles him to the bone. She does not care what he does. She cares who he is when everything else is stripped away. This is why he desires her and fears her in the same breath. She is the end of his illusions. And still, something in him aches to stay, to hold her hand through the darkness, to walk beside her, not as savior or superior, but as equal, as sovereign, as someone who has faced his demons and learned to dance with them rather than project them onto others, because that is what she needs, not perfection, but presence, not dominance, but devotion. Not a man who needs her light to feel worthy, but a man who has claimed his own. The truth is, she is not here to complete him. She is here to reflect him, and if he can see that, truly see it, then desire becomes more than hunger. It becomes healing. This is what Jung meant by individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole, of uniting the masculine and feminine within, not through another, but through integration, through awareness, through the courage to descend into the self and return with truth. Only then can a man truly love. Only then can he meet a woman without turning her into a projection, a possession, or a prize. Only then can he honor the divine feminine, not as an ideal, but as an equal force, fierce and beautiful, chaotic and wise. And she will know. She will know by the way he listens, by the way he holds her, not just her body, but her emotions, her visions, her shadows. She will know by the way he doesn't flinch when she feels deeply, by the way he doesn't try to fix her silence or interpret her wildness. He won't ask her to be smaller, quieter, safer. He won't ask her to make herself easier to love. He will rise into her storm and thank the gods she didn't shrink. Because the woman who walks in the divine knows that real love is not comfort. It is clarity. It is not ease. It is evolution. And the man who desires her must be willing to stand in the fire and burn away everything that is false. And if he can't, she lets him go. Because her soul has no interest in babysitting a man's potential. She does not fall for promise. She calls for presence. This is the cost of awakening. This is the price of power. And this is the love that liberates, not just the man, but the woman who no longer fears being too much, because she has realized she is not too much. She was simply never meant for those who live half asleep. She does not chase. She does not convince. She does not beg a man to see her value, because the awakened woman, the one who breathes from her womb and speaks from her soul, no longer needs to be chosen. She has already chosen herself. And that is what makes her so devastatingly magnetic. Not beauty in the conventional sense, but presence. Not perfection, but unapologetic wholeness. She is not for everyone, and that is her power. Her love is not currency. It is initiation. And only the man who has wrestled with his own darkness, sat in silence with his rage, and wept over his own numbness can truly hold what she carries. There is a sacred violence in her softness, not cruelty, but clarity. When she says no, she means it. When she walks away, she does not look back. And when she opens, she does so completely, not out of need, but as an offering of truth. She doesn't seek to be rescued, adored, or fixed. She seeks to be met, because she has done the inner work. She has descended into her own shadow and kissed the mouth of pain. She has reclaimed her body, her sensuality, her wildness, not as performance, but as prayer. She knows what she is, and that knowing radiates through every word she speaks, every boundary she holds, every silence she refuses to fill. And men feel it. Even those who cannot name it, even those who still live on the surface. They feel something ancient awaken in her presence, an ache, a recognition, a hunger not of the flesh, but of the forgotten self. It is not her appearance they remember, it is the way she made them feel. Seen, humbled, haunted, home. Because she doesn't just stir desire, she stirs memory. Memory of what it feels like to be whole, to stop pretending, to take off the armor and breathe freely for the first time in years. To be mirrored not in judgment, but in truth. And that kind of intimacy, that kind of reflection, it's not addictive, it's annihilating. And so he must choose. Open or run. There are men who will try to possess her because they cannot process her. They will try to dim her light because they cannot hold its heat. They will want to own what they do not understand, but she cannot be owned. She belongs to the fire that forged her. She belongs to the river that cleansed her. She belongs to herself. And you, if you are this woman, you must never forget that the men who fall away are not signs that you are unworthy. They are signs that you are powerful. that your presence burns too bright for the eyes of those still living in shadows. You are not here to be easy to love. You are here to be real, to be felt, to be fire. There are men who will rise for you, not because they are perfect, but because they are ready, ready to do their work, ready to break open, ready to stand beside you, not to lead or follow, but to walk with, aware of the divine mystery you carry, reverent of the chaos you embody, grounded in their own healing, no longer afraid of yours. That is what real union is, not comfort, not completion, but combustion. Two whole beings, each walking their own path, meeting in truth, not to escape their wounds, but to transmute them. A relationship not built on dependency, but on devotion, not on fear, but on fire. Where love is not a transaction, but a transmission. This is what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of the sacred marriage, the hieros gamos, the union of opposites within and without, where the masculine and feminine, once fragmented, once projected, are finally integrated. Not erased, but revered, not collapsed, but balanced. It is rare, it is radical, and it is real. But it can only be accessed by those who have died to their illusions, who have walked through the fire of their own unworthiness and emerged not as victims, but as vessels, who no longer seek love to soothe their pain, but to sanctify their truth. So if you are the woman who walks with the divine, keep walking. Do not look behind you. Do not shrink for comfort. Do not dilute your mystery for men who confuse control with connection. Your path is not for the faint of heart. It is for the heart that is broken open and still chooses to beat. Because the world needs your fire, the world needs your gaze, the world needs your refusal to be anything but whole. Whole. And when that fire is fully lit, when you walk not as an apology but as an embodiment, the entire frequency around you changes. You no longer attract men looking for comfort. You no longer magnetize the broken hoping to be mothered. You no longer carry the wounded masculinity that clings to you like a lifeline, begging to be saved. That version of love has expired. You do not bleed for connection anymore. You do not water yourself down to be digestible, because now you are untamed, and in your wildness, you are whole. The men who once pursued you out of ego, who chased your body but feared your mind, will fade like echoes from a life you've already outgrown. They cannot follow you here. You are no longer walking the same terrain, and those who linger on the threshold of your world, who say they want depth but cannot hold your storm, release them. Not in bitterness, in reverence. They were stepping stones, not soulmates. You see, not every man is meant to meet the divine feminine. Most will only ever meet her shadow, and her shadow wears many masks: overgiving, caretaking, seduction, silence, appeasement. The woman who lowers her light in exchange for love. The woman who becomes palatable at the cost of her power. The woman who is loyal to the potential in a man more than the truth in herself. But you are not that woman anymore. You have burned her. And in her ashes, something holy emerged. Now, you are the woman who speaks with thunder, who walks like a question the world has yet to answer, who does not need to prove her softness to be seen as lovable, because your softness is sacred and it bows to no one who tries to exploit it. You are the woman who leaves, not because she's angry, but because she's awake, who refuses to beg for love while holding galaxies inside her bones. And when a man meets you here, truly meets you, he does not try to possess you. He prays with you. He does not seek to change you, fix you, save you. He seeks to understand. He becomes still. He becomes present. Not because he is trying to win you, but because he's finally stopped trying to win anything at all. He's laid his weapons down. He's done with war. This is the sacred masculine rising, not to dominate, but to devote. This man has faced his anima. He no longer projects it. He has stopped seeking his worth in your body or your attention. He has cultivated it within. His power does not require suppression of yours. He does not collapse in your presence. He rises, not in ego, but in essence, and you feel it, not in words, but in energy. This man doesn't just say he sees you. He shows it. He does not flinch when you rage. He does not shrink when you cry. He does not pull away when you speak truth, because he knows that intimacy is not built in light. It is forged in shadow, in how two people hold each other when the masks fall off and the old selves die. And so your love together becomes a crucible, a sacred fire where both can unravel and become. There is no performance here, no pretending, just presence, just truth, just the fierce, untamed dance of two people who are no longer afraid of their own reflection. This is what the world has forgotten. What generations of wounded men and silenced women buried beneath shame, fear, and survival. That love is not a fairy tale. It is a furnace. It does not rescue. It resurrects. It does not fulfill our fantasies. It frees us from them. So if you are the woman who walks with this knowing, hold your ground. There are fewer of you than there should be, but you are not alone. You are the voice that sings through centuries of suppression. You are the flame that will not die, no matter how many times they try to extinguish it. And when you meet the man who has done his work, who has faced his own annihilation and emerged honest, humble, awake, there will be no fireworks. There will be silence. The kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. The kind of silence that feels like home. Because for the first time, neither of you is trying to be anything but whole. And in that silence, something ancient is remembered. Not the noise of pursuit, not the chase, not the fantasy of possession or the drama of approval, but the still, sovereign knowing that love is not something you earn. It is something you become. And in that becoming, all things align, not because you've performed well enough, but because you've let go. Let go of needing to be desired to feel worthy. Let go of the hunger for validation from those who could never see you. Let go of the ache to be chosen by men who haven't yet chosen themselves. Let go of the idea that love must come wrapped in pain to be real. Because once you embody the divine feminine in her fullest form, raw, holy, luminous in your chaos, everything false will fall away. The attention you once mistook for love will feel hollow. The games you once played to feel powerful will taste of dust. You will no longer confuse desire with devotion. And you will no longer seek yourself in the eyes of the emotionally unavailable. You will have become the woman who stopped chasing, not out of pride, but out of peace. Because now you know. The man who is meant to stand beside you, he will know too. He will not hesitate. He will not hide. He will not need you to water yourself down so he can keep up. He will meet you in the full blaze of your fire and offer his own, not to overpower, but to burn beside you. Not to control, but to witness. He will not fall in love with your beauty alone. He will revere your depth, and he will not fear your strength. Because he has faced his own. You will not have to make him ready. You will not have to explain your worth. You will not have to lose yourself to keep him. He will come not to possess, but to honor. This is not fantasy. This is the birthright of every woman who has remembered who she is. And this is what Jung's work points to when he speaks of union. Not codependency, not domination, not illusion, but wholeness. Two psyches, each complete, coming together not to escape loneliness, but to expand truth, to reflect the sacred mirror of masculine and feminine energy in full consciousness. This is love as healing, love as devotion, love as liberation. But it begins with the woman who dares to stop reaching, who dares to stop shrinking, who dares to live in her mystery, her rage, her softness, her sacred no, who no longer waits for the world or for him to understand before she rises. Because she is already whole. She no longer needs to be chosen to feel valuable. She no longer bends herself into shapes that soothe fragile egos. She no longer gives her energy to those who do not see her soul. She no longer softens her truth to make others stay. She no longer fears being too much. She is too much. And that is precisely what makes her medicine. She is the storm, the sanctuary, the wild prayer that no man can forget, not because of what she does for him, but because of what she awakens in him. And when he is ready, when he is finally done performing, pretending, and running, he will not find her waiting. He will find her choosing, not with desperation, but with discernment, not from emptiness, but from overflowing, not to complete herself, but to create something sacred, because the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.